Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be invited again to the Global Borrowers Forum. 2020 was supposed to be the year of climate protection. The European Union committed to becoming the first climate-neutral bloc in the world by 2050. But of course, it has been hard to focus on our long-term future when we face a global health emergency. This pandemic is threatening the lives, well-being, and livelihoods of billions of people around the world. In Europe, we have recognized that we need to mobilize resources on an enormous scale, not only to address the health emergency, but also to lift our economies out of the current crisis. As we do this, we must remember that we have a choice. The crisis offers us the opportunity to examine and redefine our priorities. Rather than investing in a model that is out of date, we must use our resources wisely and invest in our common future. I would like to focus on three key words here: climate, innovation, and development. Ladies and gentlemen, the fight against climate change is the defining challenge of our time. During my 35 years in public life, I've seen world-changing events such as the fall of the Berlin Wall. It feels to me like we're going through another one of these seismic shifts. Millions of young people all around the world are protesting, first in the streets, now online, against political and business leaders that are too slow to react to the climate challenge. Their protest has started to change majorities in our democratic institutions, and the democratic institutions are reacting, with the recent climate announcement on both sides of the Atlantic being just one example. Well, it is about time. The Paris Accord has set us on the right track, but we are moving forward far too slowly. We must act immediately and swiftly if we want to ensure a sustainable transition to a net zero emissions economy. If we wait too long, we risk having to enact an abrupt transition, which would also be disruptive for financial markets. Or worse, we may be unable to transition altogether and face existential consequences for the human race and many forms of life on our planet. The IPCC clearly indicated the years to 2030 as our last window of opportunity to avert catastrophic climate change. This is also true for the protection of biodiversity and ecosystems. Investment over the next 10 to 15 years will need to change the face of our economies and our societies. And this brings me to my second point: innovation. We will not be able to achieve our climate targets through what sometimes is called a degrowth strategy. The International Energy Agency estimates that CO2 emissions fell about 8% last year thanks to the massive COVID-related shutdowns. If we are to hold the global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees, as we have set ourselves as a target, then they must fall by this margin every single year in the next decade. It is clear that we cannot achieve that by relying on forced behavior changes, more shutdowns, and existing business models and technologies. The economic and social costs would be simply devastating. Instead, what we need is massive investments in new technologies. The good news is, therein also lies a great opportunity. Today already, a group of countries representing half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions have adopted net zero targets. Others will surely follow. They will all need technologies and investments to get there. Clean hydrogen, offshore renewable energy, and energy storage solutions, therefore, all can become vibrant export sectors. We need to seize this opportunity. Europe is in a good position to do so. Our economists just found that at the intersection of the digital and green domains, Europe has 76% more patents than the US and 4 times the number of patents of China. If we can build on that, lead, then we have a chance against climate change. And in doing so, we will boost the global competitiveness of the European economy for decades to come. But make no mistake, whatever we do inside the EU will not be enough to nudge the needle enough to save the planet from catastrophic warming unless others do likewise. Which brings me to my third point: development. With Africa's population forecast to double by 2050, it is quite obvious that our climate goals will literally go up in smoke if we allow the neighboring continent to plug its growing energy demand with electricity from coal and gas-fired power plants. And not only our climate goals, climate change will bring more competition for scarce resources such as water and arable land. The potential for conflict and instability will rise, and along with it, the potential for huge movements in population. The same goes for other important regions of the world, such as Latin America and Asia. We therefore must convince our global partners to embrace our ambition for all sakes. And we must push or help them to take the necessary action. As the EU Climate Bank, we are actively contributing with our financing to the implementation of the Paris Climate Agreement worldwide. Since the 1st of January this year, all our projects are aligned to the goals of the Paris Agreement, both inside and outside the EU. Another driver of our work outside the EU are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The 2030 Agenda sets out a holistic vision for development. It makes clear that there can be no sustainable development at the expense of any of the individual goals, but that we must bear all of them in mind. This pandemic exemplifies why this is so important. It is not just a health crisis. It is having far-reaching effects on the economies and societies of countries around the world. Whether we look at the loss of education or the impacts on businesses, jobs, and the flow of finance for development, it is clear that the scars left by the pandemic will take some time to heal. This makes EU backing for development finance more important than ever. As EIB, we will continue to be at the center of delivering EU development finance, and we will do whatever we can to maximize our impact in doing so. But of course, we can't do it on our own. Ladies and gentlemen, given the scale of the investment needs around the globe, it is critical that we tie in capital markets in our quest to build back better. As you know, the EIB was the first to issue green bonds, a market that is now worth almost €1 trillion. We did this with a clear commitment to transparency and accountability with regard to the use of these proceeds. 14 years later, we stay the course. We have issued €45 billion worth of green bonds to date in 19 currencies and remain deeply committed to supporting mandatory disclosure standards to help investors and companies make informed decisions on environmentally sustainable economic activities. But our innovation on the funding side does not stop there. More recently, we have pioneered sustainability awareness bonds, the proceeds of which contribute to environmental and social objectives beyond climate, covering water, health, education, and the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. In April this year, we also issued our first ever digital bond on a public blockchain. The €100 million 2-year bond represented the market's first multi-deal-led primary issuance of digitally native tokens using public blockchain technology. We hope that this will help pave the way for other market players to adopt blockchain technologies for the issuance of financial securities and tap the benefits this brings, including a reduction of fixed costs, higher market transparency through an increased capacity to see trading flows and identify asset owners, as well as a much faster settlement speed. Ladies and gentlemen, after months of fighting this pandemic, it is now time to build back better. Let us make this pandemic a catalyst for change by embracing climate innovation and global collaboration. The future is in our hands. Let's make it happen. Thank you very much.